to the replay viewers. Thank you so much for being here today. I am joined with another guest this time around, and it's my good friend Rhonda, who I've had with me in a couple different ways before, and we've done one of these lives before and had a really good time. And uh, yeah, last time we had so many people commenting, and it was just like people were really feeling what we were talking about. So we kind of both said after that, like, hey, let's keep talking about this subject. It feels like there's a lot of people asking questions around things that have to do with food. I mean, food, it's like a really charged topic in this culture, right? It's
Yeah.
probably a lot simpler outside of Western culture because they're like, it's just food. You go and you grow a tree, you pick the food and you eat it. Whereas here, it's like we have all of these rules and these concerns and these taboos and um, yeah, just a blending of different cultural traditions and there's all that stuff. Not that any of it is wrong. It's just a lot of stuff that we get kind of overwhelmed with, and it's projected on us. Like think about that and consider that and don't do that and do that. So it can be a lot. And then of course, along with that, I just felt like I wanted to bring body shame into this conversation as well, because uh, I mean, I myself get it more than ever because I've talked about this before, and talked about it with Rhonda, that I just haven't been the same kind of exercising person that I have been in the past number of years, and my body's changed because of that. And so, like, I've had my own opportunity to explore just the cultural shame, like the voices that come up, these program voices that, again, have been projected at us since we were young. And all of a sudden, with my body changing, it's like I see those cultural opinions coming up, and I'm just like, oh, wow, I get to explore this for myself. Like I see these cultural opinions coming up, and yet, how am I going to respond to it consciously? So that's the gist, that's the idea. If you're new to me, I like to go by my nickname, which is Beau, and my given name is Timothy Waterman. So you'll kind of see that on my materials and stuff. And I'm a life transformation guide. I've mostly worked with women over the years. However, I have a lot in common with LGBT men. So I'm really passionate about working with that group of people as well. And so, yeah, the whole idea is just to have a real conversation about these things that a lot of people is on a lot of people's radar, and that's why I wanted to have Rhonda, because I just know that she has a lot of experience in the subject of food and her relationship with her body. She's written a book on this subject. She has a podcast. I think in your first season, you like really dove in on a lot of things, food and body. And yeah, she has her own coaching practice where she's helping people connect with their own inner guidance and finding relief from a lot of these pressures that we just learned to take on from culture. So that's why I wanted to have Rhonda here today. If you want to know more about either one of us, just know that you can find both of our website links in the description. If you're kind of watching or listening, like, I think I want to know more about what they do, just know that the links are in the description. Having said that, welcome, Rhonda. Thanks for being here, and feel free to say anything about yourself that you like if people haven't seen you before.
Great. Well, thanks. It's always wonderful to connect with you. And yeah, I'm very passionate about this topic. Um, it just really touches my heart so much when I talk to people that are in the middle of it, where they're struggling with how they're feeling about their bodies. You mentioned body shame, so I think that's my favorite thing, which is weird to say. My favorite thing is working with people around body shame, but um, it is because I don't know, something happens. Like when you experience something yourself on such a big level, then and you have gained some momentum around the subject, then you want to really help other people, it seems. So it's still very, very a big topic in our society. People are still, even though the the conversation around body positivity, loving your body at any size, which I love that whole conversation, uh, is gaining momentum, is getting bigger, and people are getting more acceptance. There's still so much fat shaming. There's still so much fat phobia. Um, it and people dealing with that. Even like you mentioned yourself, like, oh, I'm not exercising like I used to. So then dealing, with those kind of the cultural stigma about all of that, right? We want these hard bodies, um, and yeah. So I'm very, very much into this topic, you could say.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that's why I like having these conversations with you because we just both have a lot of personal experience and um, different experiences. But some line up, some are kind of like on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And but all that said together, it's like we have a lot that we can bring to the table combined, which I love. And just want to welcome whoever is watching live. Just thank you for being here. Feel free to, yeah, feel free to leave comments. Feel free to
Oh,
leave.
my guy, my bro, Dewey's on. Hey, Dewey.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for
He
being
calls me
here,
bro or dude. I love
dude.
it.
So funny. Well, we're gonna get into that. We're
Feels
gonna get into,
Yeah. See, feel so bad about my fat. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna get into it because like here's the thing. Like I keep finding this. It's like the more these things are talked about. I mean, I definitely find this for myself, and it seems like other people. Uh, he says, "What's up to my brother?"
See.
Oh, maybe he was talking to me. Anyways, it made me laugh. Uh, yeah, so I keep finding this. The more that these things are talked about, again, I see it for myself. How I just feel less alone when like, because they're like these hidden pressures, that like so many of us have absorbed, and we're just walking around with all these hidden pressures, like criticisms. Pressures meaning that like we feel like we have to be a certain way, or like we're not enough, or we Dewey says sister. We feel like we're not enough, or first and foremost for ourselves. It's like we kind of like feel like we're letting our own selves down in a way, and then like comes everybody else and what they might think, and all those things, and just the culture and how we perceive how we're being seen in the world and all these things. And I just keep finding that the more these things are talked about, the less alone people feel. And it's like they finally feel like, oh, like I don't have to keep this all inside. Like somebody else gets it, and I'm not alone in this. And then it's kind of like, then it kind of opens up the conversation. So how do we talk about this and find ways that feel better, like together, And that's why I wanted to have Rhonda here because we're just talking about ways we've already discovered. I'm sure we'll talk about things we're still discovering. And I feel like we both just want people to know, like, you're not alone. We can relate in our own unique way, and we're just open to talking about it. So,
Yeah. I'm just bursting at the seams. Can I just tell you what's happened to me recently?
of course.
My latest revelation. Yeah, and just yeah, Dewey says, yes, totally really feeling that this morning, super overwhelmed, not feeling like I'm enough, like it's all yeah, I'm doing it all alone, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I remember feeling very, very isolated when I was at my heaviest, and it was my 20s, late teens, even 30s, just binge eating and struggling with this weight thing, wanting to be the look like the way society expects an attractive woman to look like, skinny, right? And so just always trying to reach that, and never quite finding a way to get there. But recently, and this isn't like, oh, skinny story, weight loss story. It's not really, because I don't like to lead with that, because it's that makes us feel like that is the most important thing, that you are only valuable uh, if you are a certain size, right? Size small. And it's still kind of there in the background. I understand that, but I also understand that I'm talking about me personally. That's not my value. That's not how I I'm not even this body. This body is just an illusion. It's not even real. I mean, I often think about that. That is, how can I get my identity and my worth from this physical body that isn't even real? That's I know that may sound crazy to a lot of people, but when you get into, you know, quantum physics and all this other stuff, it's like this is not really who I am. Okay, having said all of that, I still get into it. I still get sucked into this whole story. And however, where my path has led me to recently is that I went to I guess he's a nutritionist, functional nutritionist. Anyway, he's brilliant. And I always talk about finding your inner guidance, you know, following your inner guidance. And my husband was dealing with some health issues, skin issues, and we talked about just following your inner guidance and going, you know, following the breadcrumbs, going what is lighting up for you. And he saw this tiny little ad in a newspaper, which is so archaic, right? To find an ad in a newspaper, but for a functional nutritionist, and he just felt guided, like this. I'm guided to go see this person. So he made an appointment. Long story short, I'm going to this guy as well because I was experiencing some digestive issues and for a while now, on and off. And I started going to this guy and we looked at my blood. And I know this is all made up as well, but anyway, this is my experience. This is about following your own inner journey. So it's different for everyone. And I saw my blood up on the screen, and we took a little bit of blood and we saw it up on the screen. And I saw, you know, some things that I didn't like seeing, that I didn't like, you know, some candida, which is some fungus, and some other things which I won't go into. But and then we even saw some cells that were, he said, were malnourished, right? So something clicked in my brain, and I thought, you know, all these years of dieting, not dieting, intermittent fasting, which I'm not poo-pooing in any way, but something clicked in my brain, like I just want to feed my body like nutritional stuff. I don't want to feed that mold. I don't want to feed that candida. I don't want to feed that stuff. And something clicked. So then all of a sudden it became a journey of, for the first time, I would say, really, of not like, oh, I need to lose weight because I want to look better, or I want to look good, I want to fit into those clothes. It was like, oh, I just want to love my body, and I just want to feed it some nutrition. You know, I want to see those cells healthy. I want to I want to see, because you see like this light's transparent in the red blood cell, I think, and that means like it's kind of a little bit hollower inside, and it doesn't. So I realize this is all made up anyway, but still, this is again my experience, and I just felt so much love for each cell, and each red blood cell and white blood cell, and I want, even in the candida, which is like fungus, mold, right? That we all have, but it's the overgrowth. It's the overgrowth that you really don't want. And I didn't like resent it or hate it. I just was focusing on, I was just feeling like, oh, I love my cells. That's what I was feeling, Beau, is that I love all these trillions and trillions of cells. Like I felt love for them, and I want to feed them the good stuff. So and this was like months ago, and from that moment on, I just, you know, my weight just fluctuates. It goes up and down, but I have never experienced this where I'm at right now, where it's just kind of like melting off without me focusing on how am I going to lose weight. I'm focusing on, and I've heard Abraham say this many times, just focus on health and vitality and how you want to feel.
Mm.
And that's what I've been focusing on. And I just this morning tried on these pants that I bought that never, you know, that I've never been able to wear yet, and they were like a little big. And I was like, what is happening? What is happening? It's like, I'm not even, and I stopped the intermittent fasting. Not that I didn't like it. I really liked it, but I was like, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I'm hungry sometimes. I'm very hungry. So don't I want to, doesn't that mean my body wants some nutrition? You know?
Yeah.
So I was like ignoring my body's signals because I was
Mm.
doing this thing called intermittent fasting. And if you're doing intermittent fasting and you feel good about it, that's all that matters is how it feels for you in this moment. So that's why this is really an individual journey. You want to follow what feels good to you in the moment. But for me, I've been doing intermittent fasting for years. And then I was like, you know what? My body's really hungry. And it's saying, feed me. I want some nutrition. And so now I'm waking up. If I'm hungry, I'm eating and feeding it the, green drinks and all this yummy, amazing stuff. And if I have, like, I've been really craving an ice cream sundae, like a hot fudge sundae, because I'm in this improv group called Hot Fudge Fun Day. And they asked me to do the graphics. So I keep creating these graphics for hot fudge sundaes with people with actors all around it. And I'm like, I, I've got hot fudge sundae on the brain, and so it's like I'm gonna go have a hot fudge sundae. When the time is right, I'm just gonna go for it and have it, or maybe not. Who knows? But the thing is, that's okay too. That's okay. But part of me is like, I don't want to really feed the candida. I really want to just feed my body some good yummy stuff, and the weight is just melting off. And yes, I enjoy that. I enjoy, nice clothes. I enjoy fitting into my clothes. Not that you can't wear nice clothes at any size. They just started making nice clothes for women at, in larger bodies. Yeah. So the main thing I wanted to say is that, wow, just having that experience where I am now, because it just keeps evolving, where I felt that love from each and every cell in my body. I had this like overwhelming sense of love and appreciation just seeing it on the screen, my blood on the computer screen. um so that's why it's really important to follow the breadcrumbs and follow what works for you. I'll let you talk.
Yeah.
I just felt like,
Yeah.
I want to get that out.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, there's some really, really good notes and realizations and ahas in there, and it's really cool to hear that overall you just want to take good care of this body. And I know you had mentioned some things about uh, I'm sure we'll respond to that question in just a moment here, doing uh, but yeah, no, just the overall, like, you just want to take good care of your body, because I know you had mentioned some things about just, like, consciousness and quantum physics. And so it's like, yeah, it's like on one hand it is happening because we're experiencing it, and on the other hand it's kind of like it's like this, life is like this cool interactive film that we're kind of like watching with our consciousness, and like the body's like this avatar that's kind of in the middle of it. And so it's like, what I kind of got from what you were saying is like, like, yes, it is happening, but also like we don't have to take it so seriously. It's like, ultimately we're this eternal consciousness thing, and so we're kind of playing with this body avatar in like a virtual reality game. And then what I loved about what you mentioned about your getting your blood drawn is that, like, it's like the game, this life game, gives us feedback. It's always giving us feedback to kind of say, like, here's some feedback. Where do you want to go from here? And based on the feedback you were getting on the screen of your life, of your like virtual reality game, it was just like, here's some things going on. Like, how does that make you feel? What do you want to do about it? And based on the feedback you were getting, you were like, well, based on the feedback that my screen is showing me, I would like to now just really take care of these cells, and like not stress myself out with this and that, but like, how do I take care of these cells? And and then the example of just how when you focus on just like feeling good, just feeling, utilizing the habits that just well, you focus on feeling good, but also like chose habits based on that too. And so like the eating when you're hungry because that feels good to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are all beautiful things. And
Yeah. Can I just add to that, Bo?
yeah.
Like, and what I want to say is that it was effortless.
Oh,
It wasn't like when you're, say, you go see somebody like that, a nutritionist, a functional nutritionist, and it's like, oh, you need to eat this way and go on this diet. Like he's not like that at all. But for me, if it's not easy and effortless, I'm not interested
yeah.
anymore because
Yeah.
that's my inner being guiding me. So I just wanted to say that it wasn't like that at all. It was just like, oh, but it's an evolution,
Yeah.
And I think, I Dewey made a comment. I can't hear my inner being, and I think that's the work, if you will, is to like. I know you're saying, Dewey, that you can't hear your inner being, but you can. You can. It's just a practice. It's just a game. Think of it as a game, and as you go along, and your inner being is really just, you get these thoughts and these that feel good. Those are the ones. That's your inner being talking to you, and yeah, it's got to be easy. It's got to be fun. This just happened organically, and that's what I'm talking about. It when it happens organically, not forcing anything, not you know restriction can be a very tricky thing. For me, it just backfires all the time. So it's just me wanting this, and I'm at the point now in my life where it's just me wanting it, and just it's just flowing with this air. And you did want to talk about fear of food too, and
Yeah.
it's not to say that I still don't have that fear of uh like that hot fudge sundae I keep thinking about. I have that fear,
Yeah.
it comes up a little bit, like, oh, but what if, if you eat more sugar, then you're gonna um it's gonna feed that stuff, and then it's gonna make you want and crave. Like, my cravings have gone away for the most part.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about that fear, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it goes away. For me, it hasn't gone away 100% yet. Ice cream. Dewey posted all of these ice cream.
Yeah.
Yay! Yeah, and
Yeah.
not being afraid of ice cream is so cool. And hello, Vanessa. Yeah, so turn it
Yeah.
over to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, welcome, Vanessa, and thanks so much, Dewey, for your interaction. It's a lot of fun having you here, and I like that you have a sense of humor.
Yeah, he
uh,
does.
yeah. Well, I couldn't speak to that because, like you said, it's like these are all the stories that we've learned, right? Like, there's all these different ways of approaching food, and some of them have intersecting lines. Like others are like very like what's the word? They're kind of Mm, the phrase is not coming, but just yeah, they're very like opposed, I guess. Some ways of approaching food are very opposed, even though they might have like a few intersecting lines. And this is just stuff we've absorbed over time, and now there's all these stories bouncing around in our head, that our consciousness is aware of, and a lot of them can be based in fear and just like, yeah, if I do this, then that's going to lead to that bad thing. And I can relate to that because I actually had my awakening with food when I was 28, so that was back in 2012, and I had saw this documentary called Food Inc., and it kind of completely shocked me because it showed all these like behind the scenes things in the food industry, and I was just like, it was like, oh my gosh. And so that was the kind of start of it for me, and from there I really wanted to, based on what I saw, I really wanted to make a lot of shifts to take care of my body. And I went all in, like, with like holistic nutrition and all these things. And it got to the point to where like 5 years ago, because I was just so like, I want the best, I want the best, that I ended up experiencing a pattern of thinking, because I'm not going to call it a disease, but I'm going to call it a pattern of thinking, which is, um, let's see if the word still comes to me right now. I had it before our broadcast, but it's basically a condition where you have so many rules about nutrition that you can barely decide what to eat anymore, because like you have all these, and that's what maybe it'll come to me as I keep speaking, because there is like a term for it. uh,
Orthexia or
oh yeah, orthorexia, yeah, orthorexia.
orthorexia.
Yeah, so it's like orthorexia to me is like a label based on where I got to, or where other people may get to, where there's just so many nutritional rules where it's like I don't even know what to eat anymore. It's like trying to figure out what to eat becomes overwhelming. Like that's kind of like what orthorexia is pointing to. Thank you for remembering on my behalf. It's like I couldn't remember, so it came through the quantum field through you.
Yeah, yeah. I remember interviewing someone who had that. Yeah, just you just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
obsessed about eating
yeah.
healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I just when I got to that point, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is overwhelming. Like having to think so much about like what I'm gonna have for, because the thoughts come up like, you know, that has gluten and that's gonna be too acidic, and those two together will be too much of this, and like so it's just, and it gets to be like overwhelming, and so I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is just a lot. It's too much. And then within a couple years of that point, I was introduced to this perspective, because there's just there's all these perspectives, but a perspective that our consciousness is actually more powerful than anything in our physical reality, like whether you want to call that our soul, our inner being, but our consciousness, that which is aware of all experience, all like phenomenon, is actually the more powerful thing. And so it was telling me not to give my power away to food, basically see like this thing in my external experience is more powerful than my own consciousness. And that really struck a chord with me. I'd never heard anything said like that. And the source it was coming from, it felt like it was a good source that I could trust. It felt good to my soul, my inner being. And I was like, man, that really just like caused me to take a step back. And that's when things really began to relax for me, because I really just, all of a sudden it was like this shift that I could never see before, but I felt like I could really play with it. And so I will say that I still prefer like organic foods, because I like what it stands for. I like that it's more respectful of the land and the soil and the environment and all these things, and therefore it's just a higher quality food. Like I still prefer that, because again of everything it stands for. And I just also, with this new perspective of consciousness, like being the more powerful thing, I was just able to relax. Like, at a family party, like I used to be the person that was like, I can't eat anything here, like none of it like meets my standards. And I was, with this new perspective, this new way of being, I was able to kind of like set all these stories aside and be like, I'm gonna have the brownie. Like, I don't know if it's all organic ingredients, but like the brownie feels good. You were talking about listening to our inner being, like, and my body was like, yeah, go for the brownie, like enjoy it.
Mhm.
And I'll pause here in a moment, but the biggest difference that I've made for me is when I decide I'm gonna eat something and enjoy it because it's there. It's like a yes to my soul, my inner being in the moment, and I'm no longer making the food more powerful than my consciousness, than my soul. I just decide, once I decide I'm gonna eat it, like I don't bring up any stories. I just I don't bring up the what about this and what about that and blah 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 blah. I just go, I'm gonna eat this and I'm gonna enjoy it and I'm gonna bless it with my own heart and soul. And that's the end of the story. I'm just gonna enjoy every bite, and then I'm gonna like move on to the next moment and just like no more stories. Like this brownie, I'm choosing to enjoy it. I'm choosing that it's gonna be good for me right now. And because again, my habits are like I do like high quality organic food.
Mhm.
So there is still that going on. Like that is my way of being. And it's just like now I found this relaxation where in certain circumstances, I'm just like, it is what it is. I want to have it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to decide that I'm going to be able to appreciate how good it tastes. And that's it. I don't bring up all these like, but then this is going to happen and that's going to happen and that's going to. I've been able to like cancel that and be like, I'm going to enjoy this brownie right now. End of story.
Yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. Yes, and that's what I love as well. I call it celebrating the food. And when I was 40, 50 pounds heavier, oh, I would never bring up food or how much celebrating food, because had so much shame around food. Oh yeah, of course she likes food. Of course she celebrates food. Look at her. This was in my head like, oh, people are going to be saying that about me if I mention food, right? And now, yeah, I never allowed myself to just celebrate the food, and like we do that in the groups that I've had, and or just working with somebody. I mean, a lot of people I work with, and I think I've said this to you before, they have never uh allow themselves to celebrate food in decades. Like when you're a child, you have a usually most of us have a natural relationship with food. We eat when we're hungry and we stop when we're full. And go on to the next thing, right? Go play with my friend, go on my bike. And as we get older, we some of us who have issues with food, we it's like becomes a thing, like, oh my god, I'm going to eat this, I'm not going to eat that, or if I eat this, and like you're talking about the consequences. And so um oh my gosh, so many people that I talk to, they have gotten to the place where they haven't enjoyed food or celebrated their food in like 20 years, 30, or that is a foreign concept to them. So that's one of the first things we do is we start like playing around with food and like give them little homework assignments. Like when you eat, I want you to just slow down, taste every bite. And food just does taste so much, like a million times better when you're hungry. And so allowing and was like afraid of hunger, like I was afraid of that, of being hungry. I don't know why, we could psychoanalyze that all we want, but it doesn't really matter. But I was afraid of being hungry. It's like the moment that hunger was there, I had to, fill it all up. But just like, oh, slowing down and just like savoring, like I'm gonna have lunch after this because I haven't eaten, because I woke up and I was like, I had my coffee, and then I was like, should I eat? I should really eat before this. But I wasn't hungry. And well, I'm not hungry. So I'm just going to eat later after this call with Beau. And, and now I'll be like really hungry. And when I sit down to eat, I mean, every day is like this for me now, Beau. Every single day, every
Yeah.
single meal. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, this tastes so good. And I just I love giving that back to people, that natural relationship. And not that I can give it to you, but we're guides, right? You and we're guides. And I can guide you to restore that original relationship with food. That was your childlike relationship, where it's
Yeah.
just a normal thing to eat and then move on to the next thing. But I was a binge eater. I didn't want to feel my emotions. I just wanted to numb myself. My dad was an alcoholic, and alcohol didn't do it for me. Could care less. But food, yeah, that was the thing that I could use to self medicate, the food and the TV, and just sit there and block out the world, not feel anything, get so sick though. I would eat, and then I would feel like so sick, and then eat some more. Um, and now it's just like, wow, it's all different. And celebrating food is a big part of that. Gets me really excited. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out among the things that you just shared was when we were talking about how just so easy it is for kids. And I'm going to bring up a perspective here. It's my perspective. I'm not telling anyone else what they should think. I mean, with any of this, I'm not trying to tell anyone what they should think ever. I'm just, of all the navigating I've done, I've just landed in certain spots that feel better to me about it all. So that I'm just sharing from that place. This is how it makes sense to me now. This is how it feels better. And so this again, this is just I'm just setting up a perspective I'm about to share, is that I actually feel that, to me, it feels more damaging to be stressing out about all these stories about food. Like, let's say having the brownie, but then feeling guilt about it, and then feeling remorse, and then telling all these stories about the horrible things the brownie's gonna do inside the body. Like, I almost feel like that's worse than any effect the brownie might actually have, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. And again, this is a perspective. This is just how I feel now, because all of those stressful stories, that shame, that guilt, that's actually having a really like intense effect on the body. It's putting it into stress, it's putting it into guilt and shame, which are very dense vibrational states, feeling heavy, feeling bad about ourselves. Like, to me, I feel that that's worse than like whatever whatever like the white flour inside the brownie. Like, I personally just feel that's worse.
No, that's so true. So true.
So that's
Abraham talks about that it, and I have that in my book, that vibration trumps nutrition.
yeah.
And when I heard them say that, I was like, oh my gosh. But um, yes, like and I remember Googling, because somebody I love smokes cigarettes, and not my husband, but I wouldn't deal with that. But no judgment, it's just a personal preference. Anyway, so I Googled, or I looked on YouTube for Abraham Hicks video on, my so and so smokes cigarettes, and what Abraham said something to the effect of that guilt that, like, that person was saying, "Oh, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes; it's so bad for you." And Abraham was saying that guilt that you're putting on them is worse than the actual cigarettes.
Mm.
Like, the guilt that they're feeling, if they're feeling guilt and shame around smoking cigarettes, is worse. It will do more damage than the actual cigarettes. Same with food. Like, it's our stories about the food, our vibration, you
Yeah.
know, while we're eating the food is more important than the actual brownie or the actual Twinkie or the actual food, which is kind of a crazy concept,
Yeah.
when you to mainstream, right? But and nutritionists would, dietitians, doctors, would be like, what are you talking about? That's, insane. But from a metaphysical point of view, and that's what we're talking about here, right? Is it's how you look at that, how you're feeling when you're eating, all of that. And but Dewey says, you're answering the questions I was getting ready to ask. I was going to say, what would you recommend to somebody who's binge eating? What steps would they take to get to start celebrating their food, to a person who likes to overdo it? That's, yeah. Did you want to go with, maybe, I feel like maybe that's such an important, did you want to answer that and then I'll take a stab at it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like what I'm getting from it is that we're actually providing information that, you know, Dewey's been curious about, kind of like, you know, things he's thinking. We're like speaking to it kind of before he even says it. And but in I mean, for me, like, I really do, again, this is just my personal experience. I'm not saying like this is the way. It's just what I've learned from me, is that I'm always curious about the energy that I'm coming from. So if I have an impulse, and maybe it's an impulse that I have enough awareness to say that, like, I don't feel like these combined actions or behaviors from these impulses are really like good for me in the overall picture. I like to kind of step back and say, like, where are these impulses coming from? It's like, is it, so for instance, like, I've talked about this before, like, I actually experienced anorexia when I was a teenager, so it's kind of like the opposite side of the spectrum, but still it was very emotionally based. Like, I felt like I had no control in life, and I felt like scary things could happen around any corner, because prior to that I had lost an infant sibling in a car accident. I was only 13 when it happened. My sibling that transitioned was 7 weeks, and so like that put me into a panic about life. And so my whole energy behind anorexia was like, I need to control something. I feel no control. I'm going to control calories, and I'm going to control fat grams, and I'm going to control my weight. Like, that was the energy that was behind those behaviors. It was fear, and it was insecurity, and I was looking for control. So I always like to ask the question, and again, like, I don't know this for anybody because the answers are always inside, but I like to ask the questions like, what are you feeling like when you start to like lean into these behaviors? Like, what are you feeling? Is there a fear there? Is there an insecurity? Is there panic? Just so people can start to create the awareness for themselves of where they're coming from. And this isn't to judge any of it, it's just for better understanding. Because I've just found the better that we understand ourselves, now we just have more conscious choices when we just kind of see why things are happening, how we're feeling, how we're acting from certain feelings. So to me, it's all about just creating the awareness first with curiosity. Suspend the judgment is my offering, but with curiosity, I wonder why this is my go-to action. I wonder how I'm feeling when I go into these go-to actions, just so that we understand like where it's coming from. That's where I like to begin. And as the person finds those answers for themselves, I feel like clarity starts to rise up, that more awareness. And then to me, it's all about practice going forward. Like, what's going to be the practice when I feel this way going forward? And that's, kind of what I get into in like coaching conversations. It's again, it's very specific to the person. There's no one answer for anyone. It's again, it's a very like tailored one to one. Like, okay, now that we know where this is coming from, what do you feel like is a good practice when you're feeling this way? And that's just something that,
Yeah.
you talk
Yeah.
about with someone in a conversation like that.
Yes. And I was a binge eater, as I said, and I'm trying to think like what you're saying came later for me.
Mhm.
Um, but when I was still binging, I remember getting my first Abraham Hicks weight loss coach, and
Mhm.
she was really great. Her name was Diana, and so there's so much shame around, binge eating and weight. And so I started working with her, and maybe once a week we talk, and she'd say, "So, oh, great, hi, Rhonda, how are you? How are you doing?" And I would say, "Oh, not so great. I ate all of this rice pudding last night, and it wasn't even my rice pudding, right? It was I was over at my dad's house and I ate his rice pudding, which is so embarrassing to eat somebody else's food because then they, you know, this happened to me all the time. They would, when I lived at home, my mom, they would see you ate their food, like eating somebody else's food. It's so embarrassing. So, so I told her, I was feeling pretty crappy about that. And she would say, "Well, so what? Was it good? Did you enjoy it?" And it kind of was a pattern interrupt. And I would say, "Wait a minute, what?" And then she goes, "Well, did you enjoy it? Was it good?" And so I'd think about the rice pudding and I'd say, "Yeah, it was really good." I mean, I love rice pudding. It was really, really yummy. And she's like, "Great, wonderful." And then so every time I talked to her, we'd sort of do that whole dance again. And so what she was doing virtually was
Mhm.
taking away the shame of eating that food.
Mhm.
And as I went along, I started hearing my own voice in my head. And at first, it was just her voice. Like when I'd eat something and I'd go, "Oh, you shouldn't eat that. You shouldn't have eaten that. You're bad. You're wrong. You're disgusting."
Mhm.
Instead of like, I started hearing her voice saying, "Well, so what? Was it good? Did you enjoy it?" And then it just lightened the whole thing up, took away a lot of the shame. And then eventually I started saying it to myself, where it wasn't her voice anymore, it was my voice. And I started saying, "Oh, oh God, you just ate that. You're fat. You're a slob. You're this. You're never going to lose weight. You're never going to get married. You're never going to find a man," all that stuff. And then I would replace those thoughts with these new soothing thoughts like, "So what? Was it good? Yummy." And so I started, for me, that's kind of what happened is I started to feel less and less shame about the binging. And then I really started focusing on my alignment, like making that my number one
Mhm.
priority, which goes to your point, where now I'm I wasn't so much like saying like, "Why am I doing this?" or "Why?" Like I knew like I was just on automatic. Like something would trigger me, somebody would say something that would annoy me, my sister or this person or whatever, right? And then I would find myself in front of the fridge eating without like even consciously realizing what I was doing. It was just
Mm,
automatic. Walk to the fridge like I was a robot, open door, and just stuff them out. That's I didn't before I even knew what I was doing. So I wasn't. But then I started to be able to like do what you're doing at what you did and just start to wait a minute. Why am I doing this? Like whoa, I'm here in front of the fridge. I don't even remember walking here. Um, and just like, oh, something triggered me. And then like getting some tools to handle my emotions because really I didn't have any tools
mm,
that worked for me. And like now I do calibrations, the Madison method, with my clients, and I get calibrations myself. Like I have tools to handle my emotions, to help me, rise up the vibrational scale. But in those beginning days, and I'm just saying this because I'm hoping this helps speaks to someone who
mm,
is binging and doesn't know how to get out of it. Like Dewey was asking a question about it. Is like for me, it's the shame that kept that cycle in motion. So if we don't deal with the shame, we want to not feel the shame, so we keep on doing it. But it's
mm.
that shame for me anyway that kept me in that cycle. And as I began to uh, soothe that shame and learn how to, you know, deal with the things that emotionally triggered me, um, through spirituality. I'm not talking about um, psychology so much is vibrational,
Yeah.
spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm gonna comment on again why I love that we're having these conversations real quick. I just wanted to say to Vanessa, I'm glad that you got a good idea from this and just, using your acrylic paints to just bring more positive, like energy towards eating. Because, yeah, it sounds like you're going to get creative and just make plates that are fun to eat on. I love that. So glad you got that idea.
Mm.
and, yeah, again, Dewey, just thank you for giving us insight into what's going on for you. You're giving us some really helpful points to kind of riff on, if you will, and share our experiences. And that's what I was just gonna say. Is this is why I like having these conversations with you, is because it's like we kind of, on this same topic, we're like coming at it from different angles. Like I'm kind of addressing the like, well, I like to understand kind of what's happening before it happens, and you're talking about, oh, this is what helped me. It was like dealing with what happens after it happens.
Yeah, that's why it's so individual.
Yeah,
You can't like tell somebody what to do.
yeah,
You can like I like to share what helped me,
yeah,
but really you've got like when you tune in and practice, if you make alignment in your vibration, you, how you feel, as Abraham talks about, the most important thing that will get you on the path. You're on the path regardless, no matter what. You're always on the path. You're never not
yeah,
on the path. But
yeah,
when you start making how you feel the most important thing, these things will begin to work themselves out. But we focus on the weight loss in this society. I mean, it's changing a
yeah.
little bit, but we focus on the weight loss instead of the vibration.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I agree, and that's where I've taken a lot of my power back as well. And I always say this when we get into this subject. It feels like we could probably sit here for like 3 hours because there's just so much. And so I feel like because I wanted to speak about like the fear, which we have gotten into. We've also like added a little bit of like the shame because like fear and shame are usually very close. In tandem to each
Mm.
other. So we've spoken about some fears. We've also tied in like the shame because that tends to be a big part of it too. And I wanted to, well, because we've already spoken about some food shame, like the act of like eating certain foods, I did want to also just bring this conversation, just maybe some things that again that have helped us, because I totally agree with that. Like in my sharing, I'm never suggesting what anyone does. I'm always just sharing what I've learned for me, what's made it easier for me, easier to be a human being, to feel better throughout the day, as you mentioned. So I'm always just sharing like, this is what I've learned for me. This is what has helped me find relief. And I know that you're definitely sharing from that same place. And so, yeah, just it feels like it would be a good opportunity just to shift into just how we've had a better experience with our body, because we've talked about each of our bodies individually, because we mentioned about all the conditioning, the programming that we've absorbed throughout the years. That's one of the things that I liked when you brought up the children, is because like you can see that for some kids I know that they do get some of this programming, like even early on, like
Mm.
before they're 10 or whatnot. However, like when I'm looking at kids that are like 4 and 5, like I do just kind of marvel at how like their lives do just to me feel a lot simpler because they don't have any of this going on. Like
Right.
this stuff is not like weighing on them. It's like like, oh, I want ice cream, I'm gonna have the ice cream, I'm gonna enjoy it. Okay, now I'm gonna go use the chalk on the sidewalk. There's no like, there's not all this guilt and shame and what if. It's just kind of like ice cream, you know hopscotch. It's like it's easy. And so yeah, maybe just we can share some of the things that we found just to have a better relationship with our bodies, and again, probably release shame, pressure, all those kind of all those kinds of things, because we mentioned we were gonna touch on that too. So I just kind of wanted to shift us into that a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for me, it's definitely vibration first, alignment first, and not that I'm always going to feel, amazing high flying disc. And that's what I thought Abraham was talking about, but over, especially this last couple of years, I've realized, oh, feel the emotions. Feel the negative emotions, the wonky emotions. They're not the enemy. I I thought they were. And now I feel these emotions. And if I'm able to pivot, like just, oh, feel a thought doesn't feel good. If I'm able to easily pivot to a better feeling thought, great. But then there's those times where I'm not able to pivot, and so it might require a calibration, or I'm just going within and I'm saying, okay, what, just allow myself to feel the anger, or feel the resentment, just like it wants to move through me. So that's a new thing, relatively new for me, the past couple of years. Before, I was still trying to put a happy face sticker over that negative emotion and just pretend like it didn't exist. Now I allow myself to feel the emotion, and because it allow it to move through my body. So that's something new that I feel is really like the next level, next step for me. And it's just, it's not really about the food at all for me. It's about how I'm feeling, because as even now, if I'm feeling anger or fear, whatever, and I allow myself to feel it, like before, right? I would go and binge because I was so afraid of that emotion. So now I allow myself to feel the emotion when it wants to be felt. And as far as like the actual, day to day of eating and loving my body, for me personally, I have really learned that moving my body is really important to my mental health.
Yeah.
I had my chart read from a human design expert, and they were like, yeah, like it was so fascinating. It's like, yeah, it's important for you to move your body. Well, it's important for everybody to move their body, but but this clicked for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do it for my mental health.
Mm,
Yeah, I like the results, building muscle and etc. and what it does for me physically. I have less aches and pains when I walk every day, or almost every day, but really it's a mental health thing.
mm,
Um because I just feel good. So like I make lists of things that make me happy, like that I enjoy, and it's like, well, am I doing any of those things? Like, what can I incorporate more into my life? I have a little bit more time now. So because I moved the podcast to, right now I'm going to 2 podcasts a month instead of every single week right now. I love the springtime. So Um, just like what can I do with this free time? I really want to learn pickleball. I want to, do some more yoga. What are the things that make me happy? If I'm not around people, it could get very isolating working for yourself, even though you're working with clients on Zoom or whatever, but still can get isolating. That one-on-one physical um, contact interaction. So I noticed, oh, I'm really happier when I have at least, two minimum of two social engagements a week, and how I kind of dip low when I don't start feeling isolated. So just learning what are the things that make you happy. It's not about the food. It's really not. It's about your emotions and your vibration. And then that leads me on this path of discovering what I like discovering lately about, going to this functional nutritionist and having this be a delightful surprise. I never knew that I would resonate with someone like that, because I was always like, no, I can't do that. I can't. It's about my vibration. I'm not going to focus on what foods I should and shouldn't eat, because I don't look at it like that. Now I'm looking at it like, oh, it just came naturally. What do I want to eat? And what do I want to feed these beautiful cells? 6 trillion cells, 7 trillion cells in my body. How can I support you? So that's brand new. That's a new, it just keeps unfolding and getting better and better. For me, that's where I'm
Hmm.
at and where I've been. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, glad to hear that the ongoing evolution just keeps bringing you more like new perspectives, better feeling perspectives. Yeah, I love that so much, and
Yeah.
thank you for sharing with us. And then also Vanessa. So I read your comment, your most recent comment, and just really glad that things are shifting for you too. That you're able to just enjoy food more and see it as supportive. Uh, after years of feeling disconnected from that. So really glad to
Mhm.
hear that's been the case, and thank you for sharing that with us, Vanessa. Because again, that's what I just continue to find is that more of us that are willing just to be open about what we've actually experienced and not keep it like all hidden inside. It's like other people find relief and like, oh, like maybe I don't have to hide all of this too. Maybe I can talk about it and just begin to
Mhm.
feel some, levity from holding it all in and, feeling so secretive about all of it. So thank you for sharing that with us, Vanessa. Really appreciate it. And um, I just wanted to, yeah, just what actually just really clicked for me in this moment is that just in terms of relationship with body, with the body organism itself, because we all see something in the mirror, and in the different mirrors in our home, and it just really clicked for me in this moment is that what I'm finding is that the relationship that I'm consciously having with these reflections that I see in mirrors is it just really clicked for me that it's just like any other relationship. It's like how are you showing up? Like, are you being super critical and negative? Are you being like harsh and judgmental? Like, because if we had a relationship where that's where we showed up most of the time, I would imagine that person might be like, I don't think I want to keep spending time with you,
Mhm.
because they would be
Mhm.
like, you're so critical, you're so judgy, like you're always trying to make me feel bad. And I'm not trying to create judgment about any of this, but just noticing like I just really like clicked for me that like the relationship with the body and appearance and whatever way we're seeing the appearance show up, to me it's just like any other relationship. It's like, like are we being compassionate? Are we being kind? If there's changes that we want to make, like, and they feel good to make, it's like we can lean in that direction. We can take steps in that direction. And how are we going to be, with ourselves or with this body that we have to care for along the way? Like, are we going to be kind and compassionate and supportive uh, as we take steps in a certain direction, if that feels like a good change for us to make? Or are we going to be harsh along the way? And I don't feel like there's a right and wrong. It's just what feels better. Like, what's the preference? Like, what's the kind of relationship we want to have? And so that's what I actually feel that I've been doing for me is like each day, even though I see the conditioning kind of come up and that kind of tells me how to see certain aspects about my body in the mirror. Like I see the conditioning just with the self-awareness that I have. It's like I'm able to pause and be like, okay, do I really have to make this that big of a deal right now? What would it look like to see my body through the eyes of love? I'm able to ask some of these questions. And because that's what I've been doing, I'm like slowing down, pausing, really seeing the conditioning, and then asking like, do I want to let this conditioning kind of get carried away in my thinking, or do I want to like pause and shift and have more of that like compassion and love? and
Mhm.
and so that's what I've been seeing for me is like, oh, like I'm having the relationship with my body that is the type of relationship that I try to have with other people, like
Mhm.
that compassion,
Mhm.
that non-judgment, that, just the more loving kindness. And so that's the biggest thing I've seen for me is like there's like this fork in the road, and the conditioning kind of wants to take me down like the harsh and the critical, like the societal conditioning. And I'm able just to see the fork in the road and kind of pause and be like, well, also there's this other one, which is kind, which is considerate, and does still ask questions like, do I want to make a shift? Do I want to make a change? And if so, like, okay, great. And just, but how am I going to show up and treat my body, speak to my body along the way? That's been the most powerful thing for me as of late. It all just kind of clicked in this moment as we're talking about it.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of parenting yourself. And would you talk to your best friend that way, the way you talk to yourself, and all of that?
Yeah.
And something popped in my head though, as you were speaking. Like, I really do enjoy the whole process of releasing pounds and um, like appreciating my body. Like, and like buying new clothes, and or noticing, oh, you look really pretty today, or whatever, or just like I really enjoy that as well. So sometimes I think, like, am I sucked into that whole story of superficiality of looking good and all of that? But I don't. I just think whatever feels good.
Mm.
Like, and I think it's important to appreciate your body, and like talk really nice to yourself. Practice that. But
Yeah.
like when you're ready, it's not about forcing anything, and not
Yeah.
about, like, oh, I'm gonna look in the mirror and I'm gonna find something that I can appreciate. Or that it a lot of people, they're not able to look in the mirror yet. I mean, sometimes you need to look in the mirror to make sure your shirt is buttoned correctly, etc. Fix your hair. But I used to never look like, I would just look at my face, just quick. I would avoid the mirror at all costs because it didn't feel good. So I just think it's like whatever feels good. But yes, to your point, how you talk to yourself, that's what you want to keep looking at and upgrading and practicing. Speaking nicely to yourself, parenting yourself, talking. That it's like we all have this inner child that's been wounded, right? No matter how much our parents loved us, they probably did some things that were, uh, or said things like my son said to me the other day, like, you screwed me up with food. And I was like, oh gosh, I am so sorry. you know, like, yeah, I did what I thought. Like, I was so into, this is like that whole conversation. Don't eat that. That's the devil. White. I'm just kidding. I didn't say the devil, but like, white sugar is bad. White bread is bad. Like all that stuff. I just eat this way, and so, and yeah, I know. My relationship with food was pretty, um, pretty weird. So sorry I passed this on to you, but I don't I don't dwell in that space of guilt because I understand, I understand where I was. And like, the best thing I can do for other people is to take care of myself, my own
Yeah.
alignment. I can't fix that for anybody else. but I can share my own experience and what has helped me and guide you to listen to your own inner guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Just yeah, we're the only ones that can really do so much for, yeah, our own internal experience. There's nice things that can come from outside of us that are supportive, but yeah, like we're the ones that are really managing the internal experience in so many ways all throughout the day. So I love that you just
That's
keep
right.
focusing on that for yourself. That's beautiful. And then Dewey, glad that you're feeling better. Really glad that through this conversation and just joining in and participating that you're feeling better. That's awesome. Thank you for letting us know that. And I mean, I always say this every time we talk. It's like, yeah, we could just keep going and going and going.
Well, we could do this again, as we've
Yeah,
talked about. We'll do
yeah,
it more.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure, because there is so much to unpack. I'm ditching the shame. Dewey says. So what? So what? The pudding was good. Yay! Yes. So what? Did you enjoy it? Yes. Yes.
Uh, yeah, no, I'm sure we will have more conversations on this topic because yeah, it's so jam packed. There's so many things we can get into, and yeah, just again, just I just want to just say one more time that like I'm never saying like this is the way, like anything like that. This is just again what I found for me, and I definitely feel that in Rhonda's like energy as well. She's like, hey, this is just I've explored these subjects a lot. This is just what I found works for me. I feel like we both advocate for listening to yourself, listening to your own soul, inner being, first and foremost. Uh, Again, I feel like we're just sharing our experiences because we have found more levity and lightness along the way. We've released a lot of like the heavy stuff. Like we're still working through things, but we've released a lot
Mhm.
of heavy stuff that used to be troubling. And so I feel that we're just sharing like one, just to show like how far we've come, and two, just to be like, hey, this is what helped me. Like maybe there's a nugget in there for you, maybe not. But again, even just the talking about it again, like if if there's even just one thing, I do find that people just talking about this stuff, it's like it helps other people
Mhm.
feel like they're not alone. So if anything, just us sharing, it's helping someone else not feel so alone. So,
Yeah.
that right there.
Yes, absolutely. No, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, it's a very isolating, um, especially binge eating is a very isolating thing for sure. And you do feel very alone in my experience.
Mm,
But I just wanted to add one thing, Bo, is that, I was talking about the candida and all of that. Even though I went there and I saw my blood on the screen, like intellectually, I know this is just all a story. It's just a story. I mean, I don't want anybody to get caught up in all of that because, even I was speaking to the Communion of Light, Frank Butterfield, about it, and he's like, "So are you going to believe this guy who just says, these cells are this way and these cells are that way and there's, you know, and it felt it's a belief. It's a belief. So I'm working with a belief that I have right now, and that could change. But I could go in there. I do believe, like intellectually, I believe. I'm not sure I'm there emotionally, but intellectually, I believe that I could go there, next week, look at my blood, and my blood could be all, different. Like no, like
yeah.
hardly any, like anything is possible. I could go there. You could look at it 1 hour, and the next hour it could be totally, totally different. But this is where I am now. This is what's working for me right now.
Yeah.
Um, this is what's exciting for me right now. And
Yeah.
so really don't get caught up in that stuff because really it's about what is resonating with you personally in this moment and what feels better for you, not me, you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The power is within. Like we don't know what's right for anyone else. We're just sharing what we found for us, and yeah, like I hear you speaking to the power of belief, and Rhonda and I are both very we're big students of metaphysics, which has to do with beliefs and energy and like the quantum realms and all this. And so like we've both seen a lot of things that just don't they don't fit with all of the supposed like rules, so to say. So like I'll never forget, I saw real quick before we wrap up, I just wanted to like add a little bit to what you're like. I know why Rhonda, you're so passionate about like the beliefs and the energy and whatnot. 'Cause, like I get it because in all my years of studying energy and metaphysics, like I've seen documentaries where they talk about why, again, these are perspectives and it just happens to resonate with me, but they talk about why the placebo effect is a thing. It's because people have very powerful beliefs that they're going to get an effect. They
Mhm.
don't know they're taking a sugar pill. Like they have a story that this is what's happening in their life and this is the result I'm going to get. And I've just seen research where it says like their belief is so powerful that they actually do get the result that they expect to get because
Mhm.
their story is so like, this is what I'm doing and this is the result I'm going to get. And they're so convicted in their belief that they actually do get, not
Mhm.
like every time, but there's a lot of evidence that shows that people that are very convicted tend to actually um, get a result with just taking a sugar pill. I even saw, I don't remember the documentary, so I can't reference it, but there was a documentary I saw because like, this stuff gets studied, like there's studies going on about this stuff. But,
Mhm.
and again, I can't pinpoint the documentary, but I did see a documentary once that showed that there was an experiment where someone was told that they were going to get, and it was for like this kind of like whole like studying the placebo effect thing, and they were told they were going to get an operation on their knee, and on a certain day, and like there was this whole mock setup, and going into it before they got knocked out, they were told they were going to have a surgery, and for the purpose of this study, like they actually didn't get a surgery, and the way the documentary put it was like their knee still healed. They thought they had a surgery, and their knee still healed, and then when it was revealed that they to the person they didn't have a surgery, they were just like, well, but you thought you did, and that was really powerful. So it's just like, it's like I feel like these are the stories that you and I have seen,
Yeah.
behind belief, and that's why
Yeah.
I feel like you and I are explorers of like consciousness and the power of belief. So
Yeah.
just wanted to give some context.
Yeah. No, it's usually powerful. Yeah, what you believe,
Yeah.
your beliefs. That's why if you want to know what your beliefs are, just look around you, look at your life. And if you want to know what your beliefs are also, just start really listening to the things you're saying. Like if you're saying,
Yeah.
I can't do that, or I'm not, and what you're thinking, you know, if you're a journaler, start writing down what's there and you'll see, oh, and a lot of people are surprised when they start doing that
Yeah.
to find out what their actual beliefs are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Belief. I feel like that's a good note just to kind of like pause on like beliefs are powerful. I feel like we're only, again, that's why these studies are happening. I feel like these studies, because they're very curious, like just how powerful is belief? And yeah, like the results that come out of these studies are pretty, like they speak for themselves. They're like, okay, maybe we don't fully understand how powerful our beliefs are yet, but we're starting to get some more evidence of how powerful they are. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And the other thing I want to say about beliefs is then this conversation is kind of tricky because then you start thinking, well, I need to go into my subconscious and figure out what my beliefs are. And um, that's not it either, in my opinion. It's when you're feeling good, and you don't have to feel good all the time. You experience your emotions, like, let them move through your body. Um, but you don't have to go digging to find what the beliefs are.
Yeah.
The more and more you just keep following what feels better, the better feeling thought, the better feeling action. I'm getting, oh, do nothing, then do nothing. Or I'm getting, take this action. You do that. Follow that guidance, follow what feels better. Those beliefs will begin to change. You know,
Mm.
uh, it, it'll get better. Things will just keep
Yeah.
getting better. You don't have to go digging. Like you don't have to go into psychoanalysis and figure out what the beliefs are. A lot of teachers, motivational theorists, they talk about that. That you gotta go dig out those subconscious beliefs that are blocking you. This is vibrational work. This is about just
Yeah.
so simple. Just
Yeah.
follow the
Yeah.
next better feeling thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that because what I feel like it's pointing to for me is like, we are understanding more and more, like just through observation and experiments, like just how powerful our beliefs, our consciousness is. And while we are seeing that more, it's like we don't need to go then put all this pressure on ourselves to like, now figure out all these like zillions of details and, just add all
No,
this pressure, because
that's
like,
overwhelming. It
yeah,
just that doesn't feel
yeah,
good, does it? Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I love that you're pointing to like, we are seeing how powerful we are and like, how can we keep it simple? How can we keep it simple? Uh,
Yes.
and I'm sure we'll discuss more about those things in our upcoming conversations. But thank you for at least offering that to people so they don't start to feel overwhelmed. Like it's like there's still a way to keep it light. Like don't need to add all this pressure that then just adds more stress. Like not necessary, not necessary.
Yes.
So thank you for pointing that out. And then, so real quick, I'll just mention that Vanessa said, she said, I heard about that study. I was just talking about like the placebo and the beliefs and all that. And she said, isn't it fascinating that when you take the mind out of the picture, your body heals itself? So yeah, those are some of the cool things that are just being explored. Yeah. In some of these studies, like just, like, yeah, what happens when there's just a powerful belief and conviction and some cool things are being found.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, thank you so much, Rhonda, for having this conversation with me. It's always a delight, and yeah, I feel like we'll definitely have more around these topics or topics that are related to this. So thank you for everything you've shared and for bringing your life experience to the table and what you keep finding for yourself. Yeah, it's super helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I just want to encourage people if they want. I have a free course, Love Your Body, Love Your Life, and it's videos that I personally picked out the images and all of that. So you can go to deliciousalignment.com/resources.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, and you can find if you just want like a starting point for Rhonda's website, you'll find a link in the description. Same thing for me. If you want to know more about either one of us, like both of our website links are in the description, so you can find that easily there. So yeah, thank you to everyone who has joined live. If you're watching on the replay, please
Thank
feel
you
free
guys.
to
Yeah.
yeah, please feel free to leave a comment on the replay or an aha. Thank you to Vanessa and Dewey for being such incredible live participants today. We love your feedback, your being a part of the conversation. So thank you, and yeah, hope you have an amazing day, and maybe we'll see you all again soon.